So now we're going to move on to our next session of the day, where I'm delighted to introduce Nick King, who's the Insights Director at Autotrader. Now, Nick is a consumer psychologist and an expert in digital media and marketing. And he's got a lot of experience to analyse and interpret trends in customer adoption of technology and turn that into strategies for customer acquisition and retention through digital and offline channels. Hi, Nick. How are you today?
Hi, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. Nice to hear from you, and thanks for the intro. Very nice, very complimentary. Nice.
Well, thanks very much. Before we hand over to you, Nick, just a couple of little questions. The term consumer psychologist. I mean, I'm an occupational psychologist. 450 years ago, I qualified. Can you tell me a little bit about what a consumer psychologist is?
So I've been studying psychology, possibly like you, for 450 years, and I've just been working in marketing and research for the last over 30 plus years. And I was presenting at a conference and on consumer adoption of technology and consumer thoughts and pieces. And the head of the consumer psychology course at Anglo-Ruskin University came up to me and said, "Would you come and speak to my students, please? Because you're a consumer psychologist." I said, "No, I'm just a psychologist. I'm just in marketing." She said, No, you understand consumers. You live in a world of consumers. And I'm now a visiting lecturer at Anglo-Ruskin University on the consumer psychology course. It's fantastically fascinating. I'm helping some of the students with their MSc studies. Some of them have obviously been involved with automotive, because obviously that's my background. So really, she said, you are a consumer psychologist. So I said, oh, okay, that's what I am. So basically, I'm just fascinated by people and technology and trying to understand how we all interact with things and how we can improve things. And that's what I do for Autotrader. I try and help our customers understand people.
Brilliant. One of the things, when we were studying psychology was the number of claims that experts make in the world about this theory and that theory, which as a psychologist, we're taught statistically are not proven. There's not enough evidence. It's tenuous, to say the least. Do you feel you bring some of that rigor to consumer psychology?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we do robust studies, and actually, what I'm going to take you through in a minute is a robust study with statistically significant sample, and we base everything we do here at Autotrader on data, not on opinion. And it's so much so that actually the Treasury and the government now look to us to advise them on their planning for 2030, especially with COP26 going on with the evolution to electric vehicles. We have a huge amount of data, and we supply this on a regular basis to the Treasury, which is a very honourable thing to be doing. We're sort of very flattered to be asked. So my research is based on data. So
great.
I have opinion too, of course, but I try and bring data to light.
Well, perhaps after your presentation, we can get a few of those opinions from you. But how's COVID been for Autotrader? What's been the impact on your business and the way you deal with customers?
So with everybody, like everybody, we're all immediately transferred to working from home. We are a marketplace, so we don't actually have to physically make anything. We can all work from home. So what we've seen actually, as an industry, COVID has had a massive impact on the automotive industry. And I will cover this in my presentation as well, but it's more like demand has shot up, supply has fallen, and this has had an impact on pricing. Actually, let me cover this when I get into my piece.
Yes, let's do that. Nick, would you like to get in there and do your presentation? Over to you.
Thanks very much. Great. Right, here we go. So I have called this presentation, and thank you everyone for joining, Digital Car Buying, Inclusive or Exclusive. And the clue's in the name. If it's inclusive, it includes people. If it's exclusive, it excludes people. And the winners today are those who are inclusive, because the world has changed. We have been through a mass forced tech adoption. Example A is we're all now used to doing things like this, Zoom and Teams and Slack calls, where we're not physically meeting people. It has changed the world slightly. And just to answer that question that you did answer, what's COVID impact COVID's had? Well, today, around 30% of people think owning a car is more important than it was pre-pandemic. And in any industry, if I'd gone to you, because I've worked in marketing for a long time, and said, I can give you a 30% increase in interest in your product, you'd be falling over with me saying, wow, that has happened. The silver lining from this appalling pandemic is that there is a huge increase in, I don't want to go on public transport. They don't. People still, I had to get the train to another conference yesterday in southwest London, rammed with masks on, sitting there in rush hour going, this is appalling. People are buying cars to avoid public transport. Yeah, they're buying cars to get a car because they haven't got one. They're buying cars to go to work. They expect everyone to be safe. They expect the retailers to still supply a safe environment. But actually, what the COVID has given us is that car ownership is far from dead. We also have a demographic profile, a new demographic profile of car buyers who, if I was presenting to you in February last year, were telling us, I'll never own a car. No. These are the 18 to 24-year-olds who confidently told us for years, I'll have a driving license, but why will I own a car? I'll use a zip car, or I'll hire a car, or I'll use Uber. Who wants to get in a shared car now? And to date, we now have around 500,000 18 to 24-year-olds on Autotrader every month. We have 9 million visitors, 500,000 of whom are a new demographic. So this new demographic, of course, younger, more digital friendly, more open to the fact of, yes, I buy everything online. They do everything online, so why wouldn't they buy a car? So we've seen a huge swing in actually people's willingness to actually buy online. It's not a massive swing, 41% saying, yes, I would buy a car online. You can see the percentages of used and new. But then what remains clear is there's still a need to instill confidence in the process, especially those who less confident car buyers, because the ultimate takeout for digital retailing is that you need to let me buy how I want to buy. Don't just force me down one route. It really is looking like a seamless on and offline blend, on and offline working together. A significant minority say they won't ever actually buy a car online, so there has to be this balance. Now, McKinsey, well-known analysts, tell us we've been through 7 years of tech adoption in the last 7 months. We're doing things today which by rights we should be doing by 2026, 2027. And of course, example A is this Zoom call. We're also completely used to this. But we've seen huge increases in retail spending on online. It's grown massively because we're used to doing this now. And when we promoted an idea to a statistically significant sample of car buyers, do you want to buy a car online? Completely online with a fixed transparent price. The car is delivered, you can keep it. If you don't want to keep it, you can get rid of it and send it back with no hassles. Completely online, like the Kazoo, Cinch, Kazam ones you see advertised on TV, but like on steroids, a completely perfect solution. 61% of people said, yeah, actually, I'd do it. But 39% weren't sure. So you haven't convinced everybody. We have a small majority, but we haven't convinced everybody. So what we need to do is make sure that whatever we're doing works for the whole world. Car buying isn't a funnel. It's not a linear process. You don't start and follow a journey. In fact, what you do is you have a lot of jobs to do. They're hard. It's more than you think. So we wanted to find out what jobs do people do digitally and what would they like to do more digitally if digital is to take off. It is complex and fragmented. There's lots to do. There's about 28 jobs to do. And they're all about, and most of it is done in research. The majority see people doing their research and the legwork online because we're all researchers now. People prefer to do most of those jobs researching outside the dealership. And a third tells us they get someone to help them because it's complex and fragmented. So they're doing the job, but also asking for help. But there's a set of jobs people prefer just to be at the dealership, say, final jobs, experience the car, make the final decision, paperwork and paying, etc. So having understood where people prefer to do jobs now, we went on to ask recent buyers which ones they'd like to do online and which ones they wouldn't. And the results are broken out into 4 types of jobs. And this, again, not rocket science. So beginning with researching what suits and the kind of features they want. And you can see what we're going to do is we're going to add the light blue and the red bars together because the light blue is I've done this online and the red bar is I haven't, but I'd like to. So if we add those two together, we get the opportunity. So looking at features and looking at what Sunshine is, yes, we'll do that on site. We're used to doing that online, as we'll do our researching, as you'd expect. And it's similar to working out the numbers. Different set of jobs, but no less complex if you don't do it very often. Big majority actually want to do these things online. Great. But less than half say they currently do. Here's where the physical begins to increase. Those final jobs actually are further from online, especially having a look at the car or organizing the finance. They still like to do them digitally, though. Those final jobs of inspect, haggle, or negotiate, actually, in person, please. But there is a majority for the final inspection, which is great for used cars. So that's where people do things and how many would like to do more online. We then ask people whether doing more digitally would actually improve the experience. And the drivers for buying online are about things everyone talks about. It's about make it easy. If you make it easy for me, more convenient, brilliant, I'll do it more often. And comparing deals is something we all do when we buy online. So people are attracted to the ability to do that in car buying too. But these are characteristics of a digital world which hasn't yet penetrated the car buying experience. Over a third think buying online will get the car more quickly, and a quarter hoping to avoid the haggle altogether. So we have identified some groups who are massively into digital already, and this is a small minority, but you have we call them digital adopters. They do everything online. They don't even want to go to a dealership. They're really happy just to do everything online. Great, really happy. Small minority. We've got reluctant showroom visitors. They like to do it online, but there's some things they still need the offline experience for, reassurance and confidence building and making sure they're okay. Then you have proactive showroom visitors who are happy to do most things online, but there's some things they still value about the offline dealership experience. They think it adds value with advice, information, news, the reveal of the car and see it in the flesh. So we know digital car buying will benefit, but how will we make it happen? There are some critical beliefs, and these are inherent to all car buyers. And if you nail these, it's vital in progressing digital car buying, and they're not rocket science. So the first one is that buying a car is a major life event. It is. It's probably the biggest thing. It's the second biggest thing you'll spend after your house or flat. It's a big event. And if you sell cars for a living, you do it every day. And it's big chunks of numbers, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 pounds. But for the buyer, what if they haven't done it before? So the challenge for the consumer is that online needs to assist and add to the experience, not just reduce it to a function. The opportunity is that digital enables me to do things at their pace, with human support and expertise can then complement when needed. The second one is, I must prepare or I'll fail. And it's not Boy Scouts. No, we all know lack of preparation is a scary feeling. So the consumer challenge is that people are skeptical, trying to stay alert to risks. And the opportunity is to provide clear and transparent information which is consistent with offline channels. High quality presentations, multiple images and videos, human interaction and guidance when needed. Consistency is the same thing. Let me see the same thing wherever I go. Because if I don't, that's going to make me feel, I don't trust this. The third one is about trust. I need to know who's accountable. Now, as human beings, we build trust by looking each other in the eye and a nice firm handshake, especially when we're buying a car. And I'm trying to look you all in the eye now. I am, but I can't see you looking back at me. And I can't give you a handshake. I can give you a weird elbow bump. So the consumer challenge is that doing everything online requires a lot of trust in a process and a stranger. So the opportunity is to create a clear process for both purchase and, in our industry, after sales, transparent and clear. So it's consistent, so it's easy to identify who's accountable. And if you get it right, you build trust in the car, trust in the price, trust in the retailer who's selling it, and trust in the process. So what do we need to do to make this happen? Well, what we need to do is be inclusive and not exclusive. And here is a very brief lesson from history. Imagine your old history teacher with the old leather patches on their tweed jacket. This is the Canfranc train station in the middle of the Pyrenees, utterly magnificent and completely, sadly deserted. Built to join France and Spain and serve as a major hub for cross-railway border traffic, so you could create a single easy route between the two countries. It failed because it was exclusive. French rail lines are 1.4 meters wide, say like this, and Spanish ones are 1.7 meters wide. They're wider. So when the engineers built the lines, they came in and went clang. Oh no, they don't fit. Oh, it was exclusive. It's a brilliant disaster. This is the Viking king who united Vikings into become a single kingdom. He united and be inclusive and gave his name to something we all now use across multiple devices every day. He was called Harold Bluetooth Gormson. Yes, the tool we use on a daily basis is inclusive. Product you have, Bluetooth is enabled, it'll work. So why is inclusive important? By focusing on the jobs people want to do and where, and providing solutions where appropriate, we can provide a more joined up experience. People want to do this online, they want to research, they want to organize, they want to experience and buy. And actually this mass forced digital tech adoption we've all been through has helped. Many of the things buyers need were enabled through this digital acceleration we've all been through. we at Autotrader come up with a whole range of products to simply help. You can compare prices, you can see the availability of the car, you can organise your part exchange if you don't want to haggle, because that's a pain point. You can sort out your finance, you can even have the car delivered. All of this is about making it easier. So to summarise, we know that people are doing digital jobs in a wide variety of places. Some they want to do online but aren't yet, like find the car, organise the deal. If we bring these together, we'll result in a better, more helpful experience. The trend is accelerating, excuse the pun, but the joins have got to be seamless. And if we get it right, we win. So our goal at Autotrader is simply to help. We don't have a plan to sell cars. We enable you to sell cars. We're a marketplace. We gather data and we share it. We're inclusive, operating as a booking agent or facilitator. We just want to help and be inclusive, and that will build trust. It will evolve slightly for the consumer from here, perhaps to here. But if everyone evolves and responds to this digital acceleration, which we've all seen, and let buyers choose their preferred way, you will be more successful. So grab the opportunity. Today, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's a mad American phrase. You can't push toothpaste back in once it's out. It's all over the basin or sink. It has changed. So the question to ask yourself is, who is managing the digital experience for you? And are you sure you're doing it right? Thank you very much. That was it for me. Thanks very much for listening.
Nick, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Nick, we've got a few questions for you, but obviously fairly shortly we're going to need to pause
11 o'clock.
At 11. But to just take us up to that, one thing that strikes me is I remember when I was buying a car or buying a motorbike or buying some stereo, the ability to go in and touch it, feel it, experience it. I quite often go back again and again and again. And by the time I actually made the purchase decision, I had a really powerful, emotional, almost spiritual connection to the product that I'd invested so much time in. Are you doing any measurement of whether that is diluted at all by going through some of those processes digitally?
So that's a brilliant question. And yes, of course, it's one of the things about, as you've just said, cars, stereos, anything of value, you want to touch it. There's a haptic challenge. You want to actually feel it. So we can put up to 100 images on Autotrader of your car. And the best performing retailers are taking multiple high quality, every image you can think of to try and help overcome this haptic challenge. Video walk around, bespoke video, to ask me a question about the car and I will take you in and actually physically show you on a video what it looks like. Ultimately, you cannot get around the physical aspect. I have heard tale of some 3D modeling, which is going to appear with air. You're basically going to be able to have a hologram and it will project air into it and really fine quantities of air, and you'll be able to actually physically touch things. It will never take away from the feeling of what does leather feel versus cloth, or what does steel versus glass. So we'll never get away from that touch element. But if you can help me do everything I need to do to make me feel safe and reassured online, so that all I've really got to do is turn up and go, actually, yeah, it feels great. Some people will buy a car without ever touching it. Of course, there are some people. Some people will always need to touch. I'm haptic. I need to touch. So you just have to make it open and as available as possible. So can I have the car delivered for a test drive at home? Home delivery test drives. That's one thing COVID's launched. And when we were in lockdown, all of the retailers were actually bringing cars to you, sanitized, completely safe. You test drive. If you didn't like it, they come and took it away. This is clearly quite an expensive thing to do because it needs a driver. In fact, it needs two drivers, one to bring the car or one to take another one so they can get home. It's a complicated world.
Terrific. Well, we've got 2 or 3 minutes, Nick, to just have another couple of angles on what I think was a really inspirational and intuitive and insightful piece. Very, very, very useful, I think, for anybody and any brand. I'm a keen cyclist, I should say, and I'm kind of very conscious of cars coming up behind me because I can usually hear the engine. Trouble is, when it's an electric vehicle, kind of worries me a little bit. I can't hear them coming. That's not the thing I want you to answer, but what's happening with electric vehicles with your world? Do you have any insights on them that we can learn from?
Okay, excellent. So COP26, Road to 2030 is all over the news at the moment, and then we had a fuel crisis. If you live in the southeast, it was a fuel crisis. If you lived in the north of England, no one really seemed to bother. I live in the southeast, in southeast London. It was a nightmare. And on Autotrader, what we see, at the moment, around 8% of vehicles registered are EVs. We need to be at around 11%, because we modelled to 2030 if we're going to get to the projection that the government wants us to be, where everyone's driving an EV. So fuel crisis actually drove huge interest. We saw a spike whenever something is mentioned by the government on the news, if it's to do with cars. When James Bond launched the films, when it finally opened, we saw a huge spike in people searching for Aston Martins. Great. We also saw a huge spike in people searching for electric vehicles the day after the fuel crisis, and it stayed there. It's gone to such a stage now that 22% of all new car leads on Autotrader, which is massive, are for electric vehicles, which is a huge spike. It's gone from virtually 2% to 22%, because everyone's thinking, oh, great, I can't get any fuel. So it's driven it. Now, excuse the pun, now as an issue, there's the big elephants in the room, which are there's no price parity between an electric vehicle and an internal combustion engine. They're around £10,000 more. And in fact, if you look at a super mini style car, a Vauxhall Corsa EV is around £30,000 and a Vauxhall Corsa petrol is £18,000. Wow. That's a massive difference. What you need to do to get EV to take off is to talk about the total cost of ownership, because in terms of actually running the car, it's cheaper to run, but you need to be able to charge it. There aren't enough charging stations, or people perceive there aren't enough charging stations. There's only around 26,000 charging stations in the UK at the moment. There needs to be 10 times that many to actually for us all to work. But you don't need to charge your car every day. When everyone thinks I can't drive to Scotland because it's only got a 200-mile range, actually, how often do you drive to Scotland? Well, I might never do it. But do you know what the average mileage is done in the UK per person? The average mileage is 6 miles. So if a car's got a 150-mile range, charge it once a week, you're fine. Charge it once every 2 weeks, you're going to be fine. Most cars are not used for 95% of their life. They just sit there. We don't all drive our cars all the time, do we? We don't. No. So there's going to have to be a mindset. I could talk about this for a long time. A whole lot of issues on this, but
yeah. Well, there's one about fuel tax. What's the government going to do if we all drive electric cars about the fuel tax?
Brilliant. So that's the brilliant question, because 80% of the price of a litre of fuel is tax. That generates around £80 billion for revenue for the government. That's going to go. So how are they going to charge us? Well, they're going to charge us possibly by how and when we drive. All the cars will be linked, so the government will know when you get in your car, oh, you're driving out in the morning in rush hour, that's going to cost you 20p a mile. If you drive out at 3 in the morning, it'll be 2p a mile. So not only will the government know how and when we're driving, but they'll know how we're driving. Have you sped? Have you gone too fast? Have you jumped a red light? Usage, talk about Big Brother. So this potentially is how we're going to measure it. They'll say, we know what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Great. Final comment, just a little comment. Self-driving cars, Nick. What's happening with that, do you think? What do you see there?
It's already here in many ways. It's been around for a long time. It's just different levels of self-driving. The cruise control, which can set you behind another car, has been around for a long time. I had one in one of my Mercedes years ago. But it's a worry. So it's not going to take off yet, because there's 34 million cars on the road in the UK, circa 34 million, all driven by individuals at the moment. If we suddenly introduce a whole load of self-driving cars, how do we interact with them? And there's that massive argument about if it's going to have to crash and it's choosing between an old woman or a young woman with a pram, and it has to go one way, where does the car go and who's to blame and who it hits? There's that kind of ethical problems which come up.
Yeah.
Whereas a human being might just be able to slam it and stop completely. So they're not here yet. They're going to come. They'll probably be in cities. They'll probably be just for industrial and commercial at first, because there'll be certain routes where only they go on, and it'll just be like a bus lane where that's the self-driving car lane. You don't go in that. It'll just continue. That's probably how it'll go. By 2050, it will change.
That's brilliant, Nick. That was great. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for observing the 2-minute silence as well. Thank you, Nick. We'll see you on one of the sessions, hopefully, in person next year.
Lovely. Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Cheers.